DEER, dear encounters. I've cried enough. Like, don't cry again. After graduating, I was a scientist. Part of my healing was accepting that, like, I'm never going to be the same person again.
Hey everybody, welcome to the After Sunday podcast. First of all, thank you for all the support so far. We love getting to do this. We pray that it is helpful to you. And today we have our amazing Connections pastor, Michelle, with us. And Michelle, to start out, would you tell us a fun fact about yourself that people probably don't know?
I mean, I guess this is kind of fun. When I graduated college, the first 5 years after graduating, I was a scientist.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I worked
What?
I worked in a lab, a cell culture lab, and worked with hepatocytes.
Really?
Yeah. On
Okay,
animals
so-
and humans.
No way.
Yeah.
What is your degree in?
Microbial and cellular biology.
You're smart.
Well, it's
You're so
I
smart.
only used it for 5 years.
You're still really smart. I can't even pronounce that name. That's crazy. Okay, I did not know that about you.
Most
Maybe that's
don't because
yeah.
I didn't do it very long.
Still, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You're so smart. And I'm going to keep telling you that because that's awesome.
Definitely, yeah.
I love it. Well, hey, today we are diving into a heavy topic, dealing with grief. And if you've heard any parts of Michelle's story, you know that she has walked through grief, and the way that she has healed through it and sought the Lord through it is incredible. And our prayer is that you would find hope through this message, whether you are grieving, you know somebody that is grieving. So, Michelle, would you take a few minutes just to share your grief story and what that looked like for you?
Yes. So in 2017, I was 35 years old. I was married. We were blended. I had a stepson and our 2 children. And my husband, unexpectedly, he was here and then he was gone. An unexpected passing. His truck went off a bridge. And so life, as I knew it, was turned upside down.
Yeah.
And I was definitely, I would call myself a baby in my faith at that time. Certainly I had a foundation that was poured, but I was still very new.
Yeah.
And everything, the whole, just the unexpected of it, everything after that just felt so hard. It's a weight I can't even describe, and a pain. And there were still so many decisions that had to be made, funeral arrangements, and just it very messy. And it felt like life all of a sudden was paused, like it was on hold, and that I was no longer living. And that was part of what I felt, maybe the added to the cruelty of it was I just felt like everyone else was still living and I didn't know how.
Yeah.
It was, an unexpected, traumatic loss.
Yeah. So as you were navigating that grief, we look at you today and we know that you've come such a long way. I mean, people wouldn't know that you walked through that just by talking to you. So as you started healing from grief, was there a specific point where you knew, okay, it's time to heal? Or was it something that happened gradually over the span of time?
Gradually over the span of time, I was definitely searching. I wanted to know why this happened. I wanted to understand. I wanted to make sense of something that made no sense at all. And so I did. I did spend a lot of time searching. One of the things, because I think 35 is young, especially now that I'm 43.
You're still young, Michelle. You're still young.
But I just felt like as I sought to find other widows, I wanted to know, how did they do this? Like, how did they keep going? And so I would I mean, I would look for books written by Christian widows, or and searching. I was searching the scriptures. Like, I wanted to understand
Yeah.
why God would allow this, why my children had to walk through this without their father. I I was searching, and so as far as healing, it was. I mean, it's not. I don't know. It's not a black and white. It
Yeah.
was messy. It was dirty. It was a lot of searching. It was a lot of crying out.
Yeah.
Definitely anger. And the word I often use when I describe it is that I went dark.
Yeah.
I went. I went dark.
Yeah. I can only imagine that throughout this time, all the emotions are running through your head and all the thoughts of why would this happen, like you were saying. Would you talk a little bit about your relationship with God during that time? I'm sure that there were moments where you didn't have the words for what was going on. Did you feel angry with the Lord? Was it you didn't understand? How did you handle all of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, like, if you wanted to talk about like my prayer life, it what these were, I wouldn't, these where you sit down and you pray. No, these were just raw groans, anger.
Mm.
Why would you allow this? I often took, and here there's so many God moments. I just feel prompted, I guess, to share this one.
Yeah.
But one of my neighbors, that I didn't know very well, I just knew she was a Christian. She showed up one day and gives me this CD. So 2017, I still had a CD player in my vehicle,
That's
and
amazing.
um, it was like a Christian hits wow
Hmm.
CD. So there's two CDs, and she was just like, the Lord, prompted me to give this to you. And
Wow.
I was like, thanks, and anyways, on these drives that I often took, sometimes by myself, sometimes with the kids, and this was at a time in my life, even though I was like a newbie in my faith, there were still a lot of things that I allowed, that kind of feed you, different music, TV shows, things like that. But when I would take these drives, I would grab those CDs. There was two in there, and play them. And the number of times that a worship song put words to what I was there was one, I think it's Hillary Scott, like "Thy Will Be Done," where it says, "I may never understand why my broken heart was a part of the plan. Uh, all I have are these words, Thy will be done."
Mm.
And every single time that would play, it was like, in bet it took forever before I could say those words, but there was something happening in those moments. And of course,
Yeah.
these are things you can look back in hindsight, but in the moment, I was just so messy and dark. Like, but I look at that now, and it was putting words to my pain. And even through those worship songs, I was crying out to him
That's so good.
in pain,
Yeah.
and in the searching, in the not understanding.
Hmm.
And yeah, I can look at so many little moments like that of his fingerprints,
Hmm.
that I didn't necessarily see or feel in the moment.
Yeah. At what point did you start to see how God was moving that entire time as you were healing?
One of the most, I would say, dramatic moments. So I told you, I'm looking for books written by Christian widows,
Hmm.
and I would I just always wanted to get to these parts of the book about where they lost their husbands, and just, I don't know, something about reading about their pain or their trauma or their loss. Anyway, so I'm seeking, and I would almost go to those parts of the book and sometimes not finish, or
Hmm.
sometimes go look up where these widows were at now. But one of the ways God showed up, was he so I started immediately having these random deer, deer encounters.
Oh.
I know I know, it's like I said, this is dramatic, but I see this in hindsight.
Yeah.
Like, one of the times I was I ended up taking, because this happened in December, before Christmas. I ended up taking a random New Year's Eve trip with these two girls. And every morning in the backyard of this foggy cabin, there would be a deer out there every
Wow.
morning as I'm sometimes just ugly crying, having
Mhm.
moments. And so it's, and I journaled and I wrote all this stuff down. Another
Yeah.
one, I was in the car with the kids, and we would often, one of us would start crying and then we're all crying. And that would happen in the car. And we're on this gravel road and we're all just crying.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, there's a deer walking across the road, and another. And I just came to a stop, and it was deer after deer after
Wow.
deer, just like this pause. And again, didn't think anything of it, but
Yeah.
you just kind of pause. And then another one, the bridge that his truck had went off. One morning I was I decided to go run out
Mhm.
there. And so I'm running on the road, and as I get closer to the bridge, I felt like this weight of like, I'm not going to be able to keep going.
Mhm.
I'm going to collapse. Or
Yeah.
it probably was like an anxiety attack,
Mhm.
because I really felt like I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And as I'm realizing like my breath is getting cut short, I look over to the side, and there's a deer. And then I realize there's multiple deer. And
Wow.
if you've seen deer before, they just kind of stare at you.
Yep.
Like they have. And it was this, pause that I can't really explain, but I stared back at them and I don't know how long.
Mhm.
And then I was able to finish my run and go over the bridge.
Wow.
So, um, as I'm, these random deer things, I have no idea. Well, then I'm reading these books by Christian widows. One of the books I opened up, and she had this deer encounter, and it was like the words she wrote on the book was like God speaking to me.
Mm.
And it said, um, don't you know that I see you, Michelle? That your grief that causes you to isolate yourself from everybody else does not isolate you from me.
That's
I
really
see
good.
you as your eyes search.
Yeah.
I know what warms your soul.
Yeah.
And I still get shaky talking about it, um, because it stopped me like in my tracks of like,
Yeah.
he's never not been with me. I mean, this was after these encounters were all separate, and like
Mhm.
he he was with me, and he never left me. And that was one way I would say it was very dramatic, but undeniable
Yeah.
that um, he was with me.
Yeah.
He was holding me as I
Mhm.
was going through this.
In the details.
Hmm.
I love how that story that you shared, it's such a reminder of you were giving what you had. I mean, you were truly seeking after Jesus and you recognized, I don't have a lot right now, but God, I'm giving you what I have through your journaling, through the prayers that were just crying out. And I think that that is such an important message to people navigating grief is that God is there and wants to help. He is showing up in ways. And now every time I see a deer, I'm going to think of that story. Um, but that is such a beautiful reminder of how God is always there and He is always moving. And I want to move now to talk about healing is not linear, right? It doesn't just
Mm-mm.
happen one day and you're healed. Uh, do you still feel the effects of grief as you live your life today?
Yes. I think healing is definitely, it can be different for every single person. But the allowing people in was hard, like letting people in, um, to that space. And also just because I was in such a dark place, it was hard to let people see me like
Mm-hmm.
that, and nor did I really want people to see me. Um, I kind of forgot the question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's okay. It's talking about how grief still impacts you today.
Oh, yes, it comes in waves.
Yeah.
Like for the longest time I feel like when this happened, it was like I just want to be normal. I
Yeah.
just want to be back to who I was. And part of my healing was accepting that like I'm never going to be the same person again.
Mm-hmm.
That this is a part of me, and so part of the healing has been recognizing when those waves, I don't know how else to describe it, those waves hit you or something triggers you, and it is just an ache on the inside that I can't describe. Or you know, now I will just, if the tears have to come, I let them.
Yeah.
Or you know, if I am with someone, I just share. Whereas, you know, initially going through grief and living afterwards, I just felt like I kind of held that stuff in, and didn't express what was what was really going on, nor let
Right.
myself cry, because it was just like, you've cried enough. Like,
Yeah.
don't cry again. Like, because
Mm-hmm.
once you start, you're not going to stop.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of, I guess, just being nice to myself, like recognizing. And that has been not just with grief, but sometimes just recognizing what you're acknowledging, what you're feeling. And it's like, this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
This hurts.
Yeah.
And sharing it with someone, or you know, certainly praying about it. But yeah, I think healing is also just, it's a journey. And you know, we
Mm-hmm.
know in eternity is where we're going to be fully healed.
Yeah.
But this side of heaven, it's a journey.
Yeah. You know, you started talking about how it was hard for you to let other people in through this process of grieving. And as somebody who's walked through grieving at a very heavy level, what would your advice be to people who are walking alongside somebody that is grieving? How can they help them while they're navigating that process?
Yes, I love this question. You just you just sit with them in the mess. There's I've had so many people, what words, what can I, you know, because people do, they want you to be okay because they care.
Yeah.
Um, but just sitting with them in their mess,
Mm-hmm.
because there is no perfect words. The people that I already had relationships with, good friendships and things like that, that's literally what they did, because I would just be holed up in my bedroom, doing the bare minimum that I had to, as far as being a mom and with the
Mm-hmm.
kids. And if I could just go into my room and hold myself up, that's all I wanted to do. And it was almost like they took shifts,
Mm.
and they would just come and sit on my bed. And they would, of
Yeah.
course, would try to engage in conversation, or
Mm-hmm.
they were encouraging me, because I was always a runner, to get outside, to run. And, you know, I just, sometimes I wouldn't say anything. Sometimes
Yeah.
it was bare minimum, but they sat with me in my ugly. Like, some of it makes me cringe now, of just how kind of nasty I feel like I was to them. They're being concerned, and they're,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sitting with me, and I would just be like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Why? And I think about that stuff now, and it makes me cringe. But on this side of it, oh my gosh, I love them so much. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they sat with me. And so I think it's, you know, if you have those relationships with someone and they're grieving, there really are no perfect words or something to, here's how you do it. But
Mm-hmm.
you just, you go to them, you sit with them as they
Mm-hmm.
are. And I often, when I read how Jesus walked this earth, I mean, he did that not only with people who were grieving, he did that with so many. He just went to them as they were. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't try to fix, I mean,
Yeah.
he ultimately, but I don't know. I just, that, sit with them in their ugly,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because, and of course, don't stop praying for them. I think of
Yeah.
that too. I had a great church community. I know they were praying for us, and I know God was moving through their prayers. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but yeah,
Yeah.
being with them in the ugly.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful example of what it looks like to share the love of Jesus with other people, because as you were talking about, God's in the details and he doesn't leave us when it gets ugly or messy. So to support somebody as they're grieving and to love them like Jesus, like you said, it looks like sitting there with them in their mess
Mm-hmm.
and being there for them. And, I can tell how meaningful that was to you now,
Mm-hmm.
looking back on it. And I want to ask you, how has your journey with grief impacted how you live today?
Well, and I know I've honestly, I feel like what I walked through, I would never want to walk through again. But I also feel like it was it was almost a privilege because, and I know that's so messed up to say, I would not know God like I
Mm,
do had I not. And I would never want to ever go through that again, nor would I
yeah.
wish that on anybody. But there is like this, just this nearness that um, I can't describe because of what I walked through.
Yeah.
And that is I know that's wrong to say it's a privilege. It's just all I could think of.
No, I
Um,
think it's profound and wise to recognize that it's a privilege to have God with us and to walk with us through that mess. And, his word talks about how he makes all things good.
mhm,
And that, such a messy thing that's the result of sin in this world that you walked through that wasn't your fault, God still made it good.
mhm,
I think that that's such a beautiful thing. And I look at your life today and I can't speak for you in this, but I feel like just by the way you live, you see what a privilege this life is. And it's like you don't take a day for granted. I mean, you're always
mhm.
loving people and kind to them and taking every opportunity to pray with people. And do you think that grief has impacted how you live like that?
Absolutely. Um, I th- After Tyler passed away, the I think about heaven. I think
Mhm.
about death
Mhm.
more than I ever did before, and it is like it has created in me an urgency. And there are things where, and again, this might sound dramatic, it's who I am because of what I walk through. But like every time, like that's why I'm kind of a hugger, or why I'm always, I love you, because
Mhm.
it's always just there. um you know, if this is it, if this is my time,
Mhm.
I don't want to leave something unsaid. I
Yeah.
want them to know, and I want them to know I love Jesus and know I love them.
Mhm.
And if I'm given an opportunity, I want to share that.
Mhm. I think you're starting to lean into it right there. For people who are grieving, oftentimes grief comes with this feeling of hopelessness, but how do you have hope even when you're hurting?
And this came from, when I was just really searching, like I was searching scripture, I wanted answers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was certainly in, the book of Revelation. There were other scriptures of just that reminder that, like, this is a broken world and
Yeah.
this is not my permanent home.
Mm-hmm.
There is a permanent home, but while I'm still here, there's still work to be done. There's
Yeah.
still a plan and a purpose. But certainly, so many times when with grief or something traumatic, something heavy, it's like it almost comes to the forefront of, like, this is not my permanent home.
Mm.
And not necessarily that would always be a source of comfort to everyone who's experiencing grief, but it certainly did. It certainly did for me. There were so
Yeah.
many times through scripture, through searching, that those things gave me hope. And even the scriptures that you would not call hopeful gave me hope, because it just, like the book of Job, how he lost everything, it gave me so much comfort that, like, that's in there for me. Or Psalm 88, I felt like it was one of the Psalms that it's not tied together with a perfect bow of a happy ending. It kind of just sat in the
Yeah.
misery, and something about that gave me hope. I know
Yeah.
it was just in the searching of the scriptures and trying to find answers, like why. Some of that, did
Mm-hmm.
fester some hope in there.
Yeah. I all throughout the Bible we see where these people who are in the stories of the Bible, they are raw and authentic with how they feel. I mean, just like you
Yes.
said, you look at the book of Job and the emotions that Job and his friends walk through their conversations. I mean, even the things that Job was saying to God and telling him how he felt, and then the Psalms, like you see raw and honest emotions. And I think it's such a profound thing you said that we don't have to have it all together. We don't have to be
Mm-mm.
perfect. Like, God is a God that heals and restores. And when you let it out and when you're honest, that's when the healing starts to happen. And as we wrap up here, I would love for you to share for the people that are struggling with grief and in the healing process, if you could give advice to them, what would it be?
A couple things. One, and this is practical, is counseling. I I was in counseling right away, and just to, I guess, help with some of the things I was
Mm-hmm.
going through. The other thing is that it is okay to not be okay. So many times we think we have to. That was part of it, where it was just in me of like, I just want to be normal, but recognizing like I'm not going to be the same person, and to be okay with not being okay. And certainly not that I needed to stay in that dark place forever, not like that,
Mm-hmm.
but giving yourself grace, like to feel what you're really feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I mean, some people are fine, or they're it's more natural for them to let people in. That was hard for me to let people into that ugly space, and
Yeah.
so letting those people in, and
Mm-hmm.
just, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. Why was it hard for you, if you can think back at this, to let people in? What was the hesitation there?
Um, this, I think this is all like in hindsight, kind of looking back. I think some of it was pride. I know that sounds weird. Um, because I was someone that just, I liked to be the people pleaser and the peacemaker, and I didn't want to make people uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And my grief made everyone uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
everyone. And I was so aware of it. And I was aware that they wanted me to be okay. And it was like, I'm not okay. So I know
Mm-hmm.
when I'm around you, I'm making it worse, like making your day worse. So it's like, just go away.
Yeah, like you didn't want to be that burden
No,
feeling.
yes.
Yeah.
And it was like, it it was so much more healing when I'm honest, and it's the same with just sharing
Mm-hmm.
what has happened. The more I share so many times, it's not for me, it's for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a hard thing for me to let people
Yeah.
into my grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel led just to share with any of you watching this that are walking through grief that the emotions you're feeling, like Michelle said, it's okay. It's okay to acknowledge those emotions. It's okay to share it with God. He already knows those emotions. You don't have to be afraid of it or ashamed of it. And Michelle's testimony is such a testament to the fact of when you acknowledge those emotions and you invite God into the healing, He does a work, even if you can't see it in the moment. So if you are walking through grief right now, feel free to comment or reach out to us on our social media. We would absolutely love to pray with you through this season. But we love you guys. We are so thankful that you have been watching the After Sunday podcast. Again, we pray that this was helpful and encouraging for you. We will catch you next time.